We're on a mission from God.
Wendy?
So I got that going for me.
Darling?
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Light of my life.
We enjoy your films.
I am a human being.
I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
Welcome to Vintage Video, where we'll be reviewing every major film release of the 1980s in real time. I'm Patrick O'Reilly.
I'm Jessie Bayless.
And I'm Richard Wells.
And today marks the 40th anniversary of the release of Foxes on February 29th, Leap Day 1980. It was written by Gerald Ayres, directed by Adrian Lyne, and released by United Artists. The original title was 20th Century Foxes, but I think the title was changed when they changed studios from 20th Century Fox to something else. But it didn't change the song that the band sings in the middle of the movie, which is called 20th Century Foxes. It was also called Ladies of the Valley for a minute. But
oh, like Lilies of the Valley?
What?
Like Lilies of the Valley?
Like that, but with ladies in it. It was originally a modernization of Little Women, including like all the way down to like the characters had the same names as the characters from Little Women.
Oh, geez, they must have changed that because that is not how it came off.
Yeah, well, that was the original plan of Gerald Ayres, who actually I think he started he was a studio head and producer. He had written plays before, but he was like, I could write a movie, and so he just sat down and wrote a movie that he based on Little Women, trying to modernize it, and it still had the names of the women from Little Women all the way up until like a very near finished draft when someone finally went through and was like, we need to change all these because this isn't a legal adaptation of Little Women. The music is from Giorgio Moroder, who we had previously in American Gigolo, where Debbie Harry's Call Me was smeared all over the film in different forms. And here we have Donna Summers on the radio all over the place. Mm-hmm. And it was a $7.4 million budget, and it made $57 million total. So
sounds successful.
Good return on their money.
Yeah. I like that in the opening credits it says guest stars. I was like, guest stars?
Before the cast was listed?
Yeah, I was like after some principal cast, and it says and guest starring.
Yeah, like this is like the first of a series of movies.
Yeah.
Like, this is kind of strange, but okay.
Yeah. We start the film at Jeannie's home, where the four girls we'll be following for the rest of the story are waking up from a sleepover after a night of crazy partying.
Yeah. I have a lot to say about this movie.
Sure.
So, I really feel that we crossed a line here with this movie. A good line.
Into official 80s?
Yeah, this feels like the first modern film that we've watched. Now, when I say modern film, I don't mean like obviously a lot of the movies we've watched take place in the time that they take place in, but it's not a movie about the underground homosexual BDSM, and it's not a gigolo going out on the town being framed for murder.
And it's also
You're
not
basically saying it's not remnants of the 70s.
Yes, but it's also like a very kind of like real story with not a lot of plot, like a Dazed and Confused.
Well, it's a slice of life film.
Yeah,
and coming of age, and
but it wasn't afraid to like it's showing this girl's room, and it's you see like
it looks like an actual girl's room.
Yeah, it feels real. There's junk food everywhere.
They also have a lot of like alt-mini, like all the characters are talking at the same time.
Yeah, and there's like stuff like they're showing like Clearasil and like just like products that like real teenagers would have just kind of strewn about the room in a mess. And I just really liked how this whole thing kind of came together in their kind of like behavior and their the way they talk to each other. It just felt totally different from any of the films that we've watched so far.
I think that what you're talking about is entirely a credit to the casting that they did.
Yeah.
I don't think necessarily as we move through this that the story deserves as high marks. But I think that the cast really makes what could have been a very generic coming of age movie.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I felt throughout this movie that these characters probably were just friends.
They really do feel.
Yeah, they authentically just seem like they're hanging out.
Yeah, there's really great chemistry between all these kids. But at the start, 3 of the girls have woken up relatively simply, but Annie is having some trouble getting up, which...
I was sure she was dead.
Yeah.
I was sure she wasn't, but that it was a portent of doom that this was going to come back.
When they did finally wake her up successfully, then I was like, "Oh, she's not dead. That's foreshadowing."
I thought it was too early in the movie for it to possibly.
Well,
get
I didn't
that
know
dark.
anything. I didn't know anything about it going into it.
I didn't really either.
I'm just like, oh, maybe it's about the aftermath of.
Oh, that's true.
Of her death, but
You
I
look
also
so happy
didn't.
on
I
the
also
poster.
didn't realize that
she was a big actress.
that she was an important person. That she's a famous singer.
They're not going to just put like a
yeah.
huge name in a coffin in the first scene. This isn't The Big Chill. Who was in the coffin in that? Somebody famous played the body in The Big Chill.
Leaving. No, he played the body in Clue.
That's funny though, because he's leaving. Lee Sing? No, that's the body in that one MacGyver episode. After he gets shot by Pete's people.
Yeah, and we'll have another MacGyver reference later on in this film.
In this film? Let me think about it. Coming up short here.
Kevin Costner.
It was Kevin Costner, the body in The Big Chill?
I think so.
That's what I was going to say, actually, if that sounds right. But yeah, so the girls are all waking up. It's a school day. They've been partying all night. Annie got wasted on something and threw up in a boy's car. Mm-hmm. They're hearing through the grapevine that Jeannie's boyfriend cheated on her by making out with some other girl. Just typical, high school type gossip.
Yeah, they're talking about guys that they want to sleep with.
Yeah.
Not necessarily date, but just get in there real quick.
Yeah. And Annie pops into her mom's room to ask for the keys to what should rightfully be her car or truck, I guess. It's a truck that her father gave her when her parents separated. But her mom needs it for stuff and is refusing to give her the keys. So Annie pretends she can't find the keys and tells her friends that they're going to have to walk to school and complains that living in such a small house, you can never find anything because it's always such a mess. So as they start to leave the house, Annie's dad, who is a cop, shows up and chases them into the stairwell like he's a serial killer.
Crazy man.
I was like, was he waiting there the whole time?
Yeah, I was having Windows flashbacks. Like, this guy's just going to chase these kids up the stairs and, like, murder them.
He doesn't say anything.
Right.
And, like, doesn't say, like, where have you been? Or
he's just lunging.
I thought that this was some kind of, like, raid that they were all under arrest, but they were just after her.
Yeah.
And they don't have any concern.
But somebody does say it's your dad, and he's like blatantly knocking over girls that are not his daughter on his way to grabbing her. But Annie runs back up the stairs and then jumps off a balcony so that she can get down to the alley behind the house, and then runs off down the alley. And the other 3 girls just walk to school like, oh, well, Annie will be fine. And then we get like the title, Foxes Over These 3 Girls, and the music starts playing like it's just like, oh, just happy story about friends. And it's like, oh, but one of our friends might be getting murdered, but we're fine. We got to a scene in, is this a home ec class where they're handling like babies?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that you would take in home ec or whatever.
I think she refers to it later as like child development class or
something like that. But the teacher is just screaming in her face because she's holding this doll of a baby wrong.
I'm kind of annoyed. I mean, it's 1980, but I was annoyed. It's like, oh, all the ladies have to take the baby taking care of class.
Now nobody has to take that class because no one cares about how you raise your children anymore.
I'm not saying that classes about taking care of children are bad.
No. I'm just saying that it's funny that
equally apply this.
It's funny that society's solution was like, fine, nobody gets home ec. No one knows how to make anything anymore.
It's like, why are we teaching teenagers how to take care of babies? What message are we sending?
Yeah, that's true. Well, you have to teach them at some point, right? I'll figure it out. Scott hits Jeanie up at the lockers.
Yeah.
And Scott is our other MacGyver connection.
Yeah, our other MacGyver connection.
Yeah, it was one of the Romanus brothers because Robert Romanus playing Scott here and his brother, his real life brother, played brothers in The Prodigal Son or something.
The Prodigal Son.
I think it was just called The Prodigal.
Yeah,
which was a season 1 episode of MacGyver. Very important to our listeners.
For you normal people that don't know this, who haven't listened to
the Phoenix
Richard
Foundation
and Patrick's
podcast.
other podcast, the Phoenix Foundation.
It's long since defunct because we finished the original series and the new one isn't as great. Yeah. But if you want to check out 180 something episodes of me and Richard talking about MacGyver, you're welcome to it, and we'll talk about this character. But Scott shows up at Jeannie's locker and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And she's like, "I heard you were making out with somebody else." And then he's like, "Oh, haha. Anyway, don't I get a kiss?" And she's like, "No, I don't want that other girl's germs. So bye." And then the principal calls her into the office, and this seems like another a violation, like a thing that would be out of bounds today. But she is invited into the principal's office to discuss another student, Annie, and the fact that she hasn't been to school in a long time, and is saying, "Oh, her dad wants to throw in her mental asylum," like telling Jeanie all this information about another student, because it's like, you're a friend of hers and you can communicate this information. And Jeanie says, "Oh, she didn't run away. She's been at my place. She's just trying to hide from her dad. You know why her sister ran away, and she's with me to be safe from her crazy father."
Yeah, and the principal is just kind of making excuses like, "Oh, dads get angry." It's like, "Oh, okay, so we're just okay with abusive fathers. That's fine. Cool."
Yeah. And he tells her, "Well, you should let her know that her dad's trying to find her. He wants to basically put her in a mental asylum." And so after school, they drive out to Hollywood.
How did she get the truck?
She was presumably after school. She either took the keys from her mom, or her mom didn't need the truck anymore, or something. I'm assuming they share the truck, even though it's technically Jeannie's.
Yeah, I love when they because before they go to Hollywood, they meet Scott Baio,
right?
Who tells them that, "Oh yeah, Annie's on that bus." And
as the bus is leaving.
This is when I texted you. It was like, this movie has the greatest dialogue ever.
Yeah.
Because this line where they're trying to get the bus driver's attention.
Hey, bus dump, fucker bus.
Right, yeah.
I was like, what? I had to rewind it 3 times because I wanted to get...
You're like, hold on. Did she say exactly what I would have said in this situation?
That's what this movie is so authentic.
Dumb fucker bus.
And they yell at Scott Baio for like, "You better not be lying," and he just kind of like offendedly skateboards away.
Yeah.
But as he skateboards into the store, the door is just magically open for him. And I was like,
so it's not automatic doors. It's literally like people pulling the door open.
Pull door, but no one's there, and the door just opens as he goes in. And it reminded me of the Family Guy when Peter becomes beautiful and goes, "Wow, when you're beautiful, doors just open for you." He's like, "Actually, it opened because you stepped on that black rubber square."
Of course, if that wasn't there, it would have opened anyway because you're beautiful.
But
and Scott Baio is beautiful here.
Yes, yeah. I will say Scott Baio is a handsome young man.
He's really young in this. I mean, he looks like a baby. How old? How old is he? He's young. He seems like he's younger than the rest of them.
But this is post Bugsy Malone, right?
Was Scott Baio in Bugsy Malone?
Yeah, him and Jodie Foster.
Oh, Jodie Foster too. Yeah. You're right.
This is I think this is the reunion for them.
Let's see. Scott Baio would have been 20 years old in this movie.
Is that true?
Well, or 19.
I was going to say, he looks even younger than that.
He would have been 19. Well, he would have been 19 when it came out, and maybe
he looks like 16.
Maybe he was 18 when it filmed.
I remember Edgar Wright said that they play Bugsy Malone in England the way that they play the Christmas Story here. That it's like one of those movies that it's like everyone has seen because it repeats on TV all the time. I think that was the example that he used.
Well, that's funny because when I just read the Eddie Izzard his biography, the Believe Me, and
and he talks about Bugsy Malone.
He was talking about how much he loved Bugsy Malone
because he had talked to Alan Parker,
and he's just like, I'm gonna be in that movie, and it's like, well, that movie already came out, so obviously you're not going to be in that movie. But that was what got you into like, yes, I want to be in film.
So it was before 80?
Yeah, it was 76.
Okay.
So he would have been 16.
Even younger, yeah.
That movie.
Yeah, it's a bunch of kid gangsters.
Yeah.
Throwing pies. So they find Annie in Hollywood, and she's hanging out with her crappy boyfriend, Duke, right?
Loser.
What's that?
I think it's Loser.
Sorry, loser boyfriend, Duke. This isn't the same guy that shows up later in the movie?
No, I think this is a different guy. This is Loser. And Jodie
Great name.
And Jodie Foster says, "Stay away from Loser. He's in a street club."
A street club?
That actually makes it sound cooler than his own name.
That's why I said a street club sounds like it might be all right.
Yeah. He's in a street club.
It's like
Was
4-H.
the word gang like off limits or something? They had to say club?
Well,
He's in a street club. Yeah, they memorize all the boulevards in the valley.
I spotted Sepulveda the other day.
Oh, Sepulveda, filthy casual. But yeah, so they find her and this guy basically standing in traffic with a dog.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Hey, Annie." And she's like, "Oh my God, it's my friends," which she does every time she sees anyone she recognizes even slightly. And she just runs across a bunch of traffic. She's like holding a dog. She's like, "Here's my dog. I just found him." And they're like, "Put the dog down. We have to go." She's like, there's like a warrant out for her arrest or something. She's like not supposed to be in Hollywood.
Yeah, she's already on some kind of probation.
Yeah, she's on probation or parole, and she's not supposed to be here. She's not supposed to leave the city, presumably, where they started. And so they tell her to get in the car, just drop the dog in traffic and get out of here. And meanwhile, her boyfriend is picking a fight with one of the cars that they've cut off and knocked the driver unconscious in the middle of the road because he's a loser from one of those real mean street clubs. And they all hop in the car and drive off. Jeanie goes to Annie's mom to let her know that Annie's going to be staying with her. And Annie's mom is just like silhouetted against a window with a giant dog next to her on a couch.
Yeah.
And she's like, "She's going to be with me, so don't worry about her. Please don't tell her dad." And she's like, "I don't tell the man nothing."
Yeah.
And then she just leaves. She goes shopping with Annie, where Annie tells her that the cop is not her actual dad, not her biological dad. But I also get the impression from the rest of this conversation that he is.
Yeah.
She just doesn't want him to be her biological dad.
Because she says she met him in a dream or in a dream state or something.
She's like, "I found out a couple months ago he's not my dad. My actual dad is a cross between Cary Grant and Thor, and he's a motocross rider." And
that makes sense.
She's like, yeah, I can't see Cary Grant on a motorcycle or something like that. But while they're at the store, Deirdre, one of the other friends, starts flirting with a cashier that she likes.
Not an attractive cashier. I mean, it's 1980. Maybe there's different standards, but like this is definitely like. I feel like it's funny because it's authentic, but this is like a pimple-faced kid that's kind of got a unibrow.
Sure. But yeah, so she's being really flirty. She's buying like one or two things for like $3. And when they get back to Jeannie's house, she calls the store and says like, "Oh, hey, I was in there earlier. You probably remember me. Anyway, I think I dropped my concert tickets at the store somewhere. Can you check and see if you can find them?" And the guy sounds like, fumbly, like we don't hear his half of the conversation, but just based on what she's saying to him, we can tell that he's like kind of tripping over his own words and doesn't know how to respond to her and can't find the tickets. And she's like, "Oh, I feel like such an idiot. I just found them here in my purse and I already told my boyfriend that we weren't going to go to the concert. Now who am I going to go with?" And, oh, really? Well, yeah, I guess.
So
no, I'm going with my friends,
elaborate.
but I'll meet you at the concert hall.
Like, why not just invite him?
Right.
Why go through all of that?
And why say you have a boyfriend?
Because you got to get him to ask you out. Have you ever even 80s girled before?
I guess not.
That's how it worked, I assume. But yeah, so it turns out that these tickets are all complimentary tickets that Jeanie gets because her dad works for the touring company.
And she got everyone a ticket, including Scott Baio and Robert Romanus.
Yeah, who aren't actually dating anybody in their friend group at this point.
Yeah.
Like, they're just like... Just friends. Yeah, she got like +8 on her tickets. So they go to the concert, and on the way in, the girls are kind of switching the dates around a bit because the boys thought they were coming with different people. Deirdre didn't actually cancel on her boyfriend, so he thought he was still going to the concert and already left for it.
Yeah, he had already left when she called to cancel on him.
So when they get there, her boyfriend shows up already, and Jeannie's like trying to say like, "Oh no, you're with her now." and she's always liked you, and he's going to be with her, and like trying to mix everything up on their way in.
I like when they get hassled in the parking lot a little bit by the guys who like say, "Oh, come on," and like they're all like, they're joking it off, and then they start yelling, "Dykes, Dykes!" So they just go with it and start going, blah, like they're making out with, pretending to make out with each other.
And so many of these moments in the film feel really authentic and stuff like that, where it's just like, the girls aren't going to be pissed. They're just having fun. They're going to go with it.
And that's what an 80s guy would say if a girl didn't show him enough attention to it. It'd just be like, oh, they're gay, whatever. But then Angel takes the stage. That's this this hair metal band singing the title to the film, or the former title to the film, 20th Century Foxes.
I'm guessing this was supposed to be more of a showcase for this band than it ended up being.
Yeah, this is from one of their first albums. I went through their Wikipedia page. I do not recognize any of their music. No offense, Angel. I know you're listening.
Well, I think that
they are still around and released an album in 2019.
Oh, no kidding. Are you really?
Yes.
Oh my god.
According to their Wikipedia page. I don't know how. I mean, maybe the lead singer just put that on there. But yeah. So I tried listening to a few of their songs on YouTube, and nothing rang a bell. But Jeanie connects with her dad backstage, and basically
also a singer.
Yes, and she had made the point earlier when Deirdre was hitting on or talking to the grocery store boy on the phone. She was telling the other friends, like, you know what, I'm going to try or one of them says, well, why don't you tell your dad to start paying your mom child support since he's not doing that? And she's like, oh, no, he'd blow his lid if I brought up child support. But she does it anyway in this conversation because she's tired of living with her mom in this tiny place. She basically wants him to foot the bill for a whole new apartment for her. Because he's like, oh, well, I'll get a new place for you and your mom. And she's like, no, mom's happy where she is. Get me a new place. And he's like, well, you know what we'll do? I can't do any of that right now. We're really busy. But someday I'm going to get you a big place and all your friends can live there. And we'll have horses and it'll be, a farm upstate. Just a bunch of it's the same as having a Gary Cooper Thor dad, where it's just like she's smiling and hugging him, but she knows that none of this is ever going to happen. It sounds like this is the most.
It's all a metaphor for dying. He's like,
sure,
we're going to get a farm.
Or the dad's really creepy and he wants a house with her and all of her friends for some other nefarious purpose. But yeah, so they kind of break it off at that. He does offer to give her some money, but he's not.
It's like, here, go buy some clothes. I got to make up for the fact that I'm an absentee dad.
Yeah, and he does blatantly say a couple times here, I'm a crappy dad, and it's like, well, it's probably, it would be better than having an absentee father. And she's like, oh, I don't care that you're an absentee dad. And it's like, well, he's guilting you into saying that, so you do care. It's just by acknowledging it, somehow he's forgiving himself. But so on the way home, Brad asks if he can sleep with Annie while they're in the truck. He's just like, hey, Annie, do you care if can I stay with you tonight? And she's like, well, I'm going to be at Jeannie's house. And he's like, okay, so can I stay with you tonight? And she's like, I'm going to sleep at her house. And he's like, yeah, can I sleep with you? She's like, what? No. And then he just moves to the next girl. He's like, hey, Madge, can I sleep with you? She's like, what? No. And then he's like, hey, Jeanie. And then I'll just start laughing at him. And then he just has to get out of the car because he's so embarrassed.
But I like Jeannie's reaction of oh, I'm the last.
Good. Oh, Madge came before me, huh? Real nice. I'm driving. But yeah, so Brad hops out and just skateboards off. Annie sees maybe a different boyfriend. This is Duke here. I don't think this is Loser.
No, yeah, I think this might be Duke.
This is Duke. So she sees Duke and hops out of the car and just runs off to hang out with them. So it's basically just Jeanie and Madge in the car. They go back to Madge's house to drop off Madge because she wasn't going to be staying at Jeannie's house. But when they right as they're walking up to the house, Madge admits, oh, by the way, I have slept with a guy, but that's literally all I did was sleep with him. It didn't go any further, but he's a much older guy. And when they go in the house, it turns out that Madge's little sister is having a sleepover, and there's 20 kids at their house already. And then we meet her mom, and her mom is being a host for this party. But it seems like there were 2 parties planned at this house on this night.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's supposed to be Madge's birthday, and the girls are supposed to come over or something.
Yeah, so Madge is supposed to have a party with her friends.
But it was supposed to be after the little sister's party.
Well, I think that the sister was probably trying to sabotage, or like said, like, well, if she's having friends over, can I have friends over? And
sure.
We'll quote unquote stay out of the way kind of thing.
But it was too many kids already.
But and maybe I'm crazy.
Yeah.
But Madge's mom is awesome.
Yes, I 100% agree.
Yes.
She is cool.
And Madge is just like, you don't understand, Mom. It's
She's
just
like, I don't understand. Like, I'm the cool mom.
Yeah, I got you a keg.
Yeah, I literally got you a keg for your high school party. And she's like, my friends are too cool for beer. They drink liquor. And it's like, your friends don't drink liquor.
They drink scotch.
Yeah. She's like, oh, is that right? Jeanie, do you like scotch? No, I don't like scotch. But I love her reaction to Jeanie saying, no, I don't like scotch, because it seems like that's when she realizes, oh, you've actually had scotch. Because if you hadn't had scotch, you would have just said, oh, sure. But you've clearly had it if you're willing to admit that you don't like it as a child. But yeah, she seems like really cool, and she's like making fun of her kid in all the like right ways.
Yeah, and when Madge is getting all upset, and she calls it the little sister. He says, "Bring me a beer. Bring mommy a beer."
Yeah, she's like, oh, she says, like, right after she says she's a virgin, she's like, oh, that's wonderful. Why don't you bring your mom a beer? Like celebrating that her daughter is a virgin.
Well, and she comes clean. Like, he's like, you don't understand, Mom. It's like your dad and I did stuff. We did all kinds of stuff.
It's like, I was a human. I was your age at some point in my life.
Like, she wasn't at all trying to hide. Like, she's like, your father and I never did anything like that when we were young. It's like,
she's being very transparent and honest with her daughter, which I think is the right approach. I don't think buying a keg of beer for a bunch of high school kids is the right approach. Yeah, I think that's one step too far into the trying to be a cool mom, and is illegal. Yeah, well, illegal, whatever.
Yeah, there is a thing about that, but anyway. It reminded me very much of the sketch of the state where it's Doug. I'm Doug. And his dad is like, he's always trying to like prove that he's better than his dad, or his dad doesn't understand his generation. And his dad's like, Doug, are these your cigarettes? It's like, yeah. What you gonna do about it, Dad? You just send me to Grandma so she can teach me pinochle and make me bland? It's like, no, I was wondering if I could borrow one. But one is like, oh yeah, sure. No, Dad. like his dad's like super cool and like totally
has no problem with anything.
And Doug is like really upset about it. This is like, and Madge goes and cries. Yeah, she cries because
her mom is too cool. She's out-cooling her.
Cool.
Yeah,
in front of her friends.
And she comes in and says, "Your friends are coming over. You better get out there and go hang out with your friends and drink that beer."
Yeah, she's like, Mom, you're not embarrassing me in front of my friends. But yeah, then she literally, like, as Madge is crying on the bed, she goes into her room and she's like, oh, are you just going to cry? Are you a big crybaby? Okay, well, then I'm going to cancel the whole party, and you're going to have to call all of your friends and tell them why the party got canceled. And she just continues crying in her bedroom and never comes out for the rest of the night. Her sister's just sitting on the porch, and every time someone who was going to go to the party shows up, she's like,
where's Madge? She's grounded. How come? She's a virgin.
And then the kids just turn around and leave. Jeanie goes back to her house, and her mom has been up late studying because she's trying to get a college degree, because her ex-husband told her that if she gets a degree that he'll leave her alone, or she'll leave him alone finally. Mm-hmm. And she's complaining because none of it makes any sense to her, and it seems like Jeannie's getting like weirdly mean here. Like, she starts the conversation in a dark direction by ripping on her for her boyfriend, and she's like, oh, well, why didn't he take you to dinner? And she's like, I don't know why he didn't take me to dinner. He was supposed to take me yesterday. He was supposed to take me today, but he's too busy with his wife, and it's like his ex-wife, or they're separated or something like that. But he keeps finding reasons to not be around, and he's ignoring her, and so she's depressed about it and trying to study on top of all that. Jeanie just gives her crap about sleeping around, basically. Yeah.
And this is Hot Lips.
Yes.
Hot Lips O'Houlihan.
I always think of Back to School. She plays the English professor that's somehow supposed to be the romantic opposite for Rodney Dangerfield in that movie.
Yeah. Was his name Walter Mellon?
Yeah. And then he does like the triple melon or something.
The triple Indy.
The triple Indy. But yeah, so we kind of end the night with them kind of they make up, and she's reading to her mom from this book because her mom like can't even read it anymore. She's just so tired that her eyes are crossed basically. The next morning, Madge is listening to a radio show while she's brushing her hair, and on the radio show there's a prank caller that called a shoe store, and he's asking if he can chew on the shoes.
Yeah.
This scene was so bizarre.
Well, the 80s had a lot of like prank calling became like a really big trend. Like you had the Jerky Boys and stuff like that. This might have even been a Jerky Boys bit, I don't know. But people would do prank calls and record them, and radio shows would do it a lot. But the guy at the shoe store is being weirdly understanding, which makes it sound really staged.
Is it going to be noticeable? So if another customer comes in and wants that shoe to wear, is it going to be noticeable that somebody nibbled on it?
Are your shoes that quality shoes that somebody's going to care that much?
But he says, like, you can come to the store and I'll take you to the back. And he's like, oh, do you have some extra nice shoes? And he's like, yeah, I got some real nice shoes in the back. Like, why would I exclusively let you chew on the nice shoes? It doesn't make any sense. Unless you're buying them.
None of it makes any sense.
Well, chewing on shoes I get. I don't get that. But we find out that she's getting all dolled up so that she can go meet her boyfriend, the much older boyfriend character. And she then walks to his house in the Hollywood Hills wearing high heels and socks.
Yeah, you definitely don't wear fancy lady shoes with like socks. And they were like, you know, they were like long folded over socks with like a ruffled edge,
you know, but with like a nice high heel, and she's walking up a hill driveway.
Yeah, but they were like little strappy girl high heels. They weren't like.
But this also sings to her like naivete.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't know.
She doesn't quite know how to dress herself yet. But so she goes to the house and she meets Jay, played by Randy Quaid. And he's just about to leave for a flight to New York. She didn't call ahead of time and say that she was coming over.
Right.
And he's been trying to reach her for weeks, but she hasn't been answering her phone because I don't know if she even gave him a real number. She probably doesn't want her parents to intercept this call. She's pretending to date somebody else.
She's pretending to date somebody else?
That's what she told him. She said, my mom thinks I'm with so-and-so because she likes him better. I haven't told them about us. But she asks him why they didn't have sex when they were together. And he's like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, would it have been so terrible if we did? And he's like, well, no, let's go do it. She's like, well, don't you have a flight to New York? And he's like, they got flights going to New York all day.
Mm-hmm.
So we just cut to them having had sex, and she calls Jeanie to tell her because Jeanie's her best friend, and you're supposed to share this information with your best friend.
Because she's like supposed to be 16. This girl is 16, and this guy's got to be like 30.
Yeah, at least. Randy Quaid is probably 30 to 35, but we looked it up, and they were only 1 year apart, right?
Right. Well, the
actor
and the actress, but you know, she's still supposed to be playing a 16-year-old.
I felt like this scene was supposed to be more disturbing than it ends up being over the course of this movie.
Yeah.
But she calls Jeanie to tell her what happened, and Jeanie is at home with Annie because Annie's staying at their place still. And after she hangs up the phone, she's like, "Oh man, yeah, it's always hard when you get the call that your best friend lost her virginity." And she's like, "Yeah." So they all go up to Jay's house because Jay left for New York, and they decide they're gonna like treat it as their house because they just want a place where there aren't parents around. And then they make Deirdre cry because whenever they go to she's the one who always gets sent to the store to buy stuff, and they're complaining about what she came back with, and she didn't even have enough money this time to get everything, and she's worried because they've been hanging out at this house and her mom doesn't know where she is, and she thinks her mom is worried, and she starts crying, and they're like, "Hey, we should have a party to cheer you up." So they're like, "We're going to call 4 boys. There's 4 of us girls. We'll have a party here and everything."
Yeah, but they want to make it like a fancy grown-up party.
They want to have an adult party because they have an adult home.
Like a dinner party that's all fancy.
They even make meat with the little like paper things on the end of the bones.
Yeah, the weird little skirts that drumsticks sometimes wear. And we cut to a scene where 3 boys show up and they're wearing like prom tuxes of various colors.
And Scott Baio shows up with his t-shirt.
T-shirt tux. That's awesome.
And the girls are all wearing like fancy like dresses too. And Annie's like, or not Annie, who was it?
Madge.
Deirdre has like one of those like Audrey Hepburn like
the long
cigarette things. But
they like it's an interesting scene because I think it really emphasizes how young the girls are because
such a bad impression
they
of being
all
adults.
just look like little kids playing dress up.
Yeah. And
the boys are these like nerdy pimple-faced guys that don't look good in suits. Like they're
too young for a suit to do a trick for them. But then when Brad shows up, he's just wearing a tucked shirt, and Annie is pissed off immediately because this was supposed to be her date, I think.
Yeah.
And she's just like, I told you not to invite him. He's an idiot. And he's like, well, fine. I don't even want to come here anyway. Like they're already like sparring with each other at the door, and then they kind of make up real quick. And then she goes to try and kiss him, and he like turns his face away, and she's like, "Oh, rejected." And then he like grabs her and kisses her again on their way in, and then they're both laughing about it. But we move to the party, just getting started. They've like said grace or something, and they're sitting at the table when suddenly there's a ring at the door. Or a knock at a sliding door.
Sliding door, yeah.
And I think first Deirdre goes to the door, opens it, and Debbie's there. And Debbie's like, hey, I heard there was a party and I want to come in and I'm looking for Laura or something like that.
And I didn't recognize
Did you recognize Debbie?
Did you recognize Debbie?
I only recognized Debbie because I had looked up the cast prior.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I saw, Laura Dern plays Debbie.
Yeah, and this was her first role in anything.
And so I was on the lookout for Debbie.
Yeah. But
she's 13 in this
crazy.
film. 13. And she actually, I don't know, she actually looks the same age as the 30-year-old playing the 16-year-old.
That's true,
but
yeah.
like, I just...
But I think the glasses make her look younger, actually, that she's wearing in this scene.
Yeah.
But so she says, oh, I'm looking for Lori. And she's like, oh, Lori's not here, so get out. And she leaves and goes back to the table. And then there's another knock at the door. That's when Jeannie's like, all right, my turn. So she goes to answer the door. And it's this kid, Rhett, is like coming through the door. And she's like, oh, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, I heard there was a party. And she's like, there's not a party. You gotta go. This is a private party. It's not for everybody. And then Annie notices him, and she's like, oh, hey, how's it going? You still going to this school? And he's like, no, I'm in college now. And she's like, oh, you got to come into our party. And he's like, oh, cool. Is it cool if my friend comes? And he's like, this is Buddy. And like this big kid like follows him in. And he's like, oh, yeah, I guess that's fine. And then Debbie follows Buddy in, and she's like, I'm his date. And she's like, ugh, okay, fine, whatever. And they're like, there's a lot more people waiting out there to join this party. And suddenly it's already like just instantly a mess.
Yeah, I do not understand how fast this party spirals out of control.
Yeah. And honestly, it's not even that bad until Duke shows up. Mm-hmm. Like there's too many people at this house. And stuff is probably getting broken silently or like around the seams that we're not seeing. But nothing is going horrifically wrong until Duke shows up.
Yeah.
But one girl does get hit in the face with a football in the middle of it.
And Scott Baio takes a girl into a back bedroom, and when they come back out, they have swapped shirts.
Yes.
Ooh.
Because there's some illicit shirt trading going on at this party. Black market shirt trades. Duke shows up, and they try to keep him out, and they don't succeed, and he immediately picks a fight with everyone and just starts destroying everything because he's pissed off that he wasn't invited to this thing and that Annie's here and he's not. And he picks fights with all of the guys. So I'm pretty sure he beats the crap out of Scott Baio. And then some of the other guys that were there in tuxes are trying to stop him too. And everybody's getting thrown around and he's just destroying
breaking
everything.
furniture and all that.
Falling through tables, knocking over. Like there's a whole chase through the house in which they're trying to like pull furniture over to like stop them from being chased.
Yeah.
They wreck the stereo, the whole business.
But then we cut basically Jeannie's trying to call the police, but there's so many people that are on the phone that she can't get a clean line. So she's like, hang up, I'm trying to call the police. And she eventually does get through because we see the 4 girls sitting in chairs in a police station. And a cop is on the phone with Jay already telling him, oh yeah, we just came from your house. These girls destroyed it. And Jay realizes that Madge is one of the 4 girls. While they're sitting there having been detained, a cop comes in off the street, and we realize very quickly this is Annie's father.
Dad. Yeah.
And the guy at the desk, the dispatcher, says, "Oh, these 4 girls were brought in from a party destroying a house. Is that your daughter?" And the cop turns around, he picks up Annie, and he walks out of the room. And that's the end of them in this scene. We go back to Jeannie's house, where her mom is lecturing her about throwing parties like this. And she's the more hypocritical mom.
Yeah.
Where she's like, "Oh, how dare you do this kind of stuff? Aren't there nice people anymore?" And it's like, you're making all the same mistakes I'm making, but right now as an adult.
Yeah. And it's like, what's wrong with Sam? He wears white shoes. You apologize.
Yeah. It's like ridiculous that that's your criticism, and then equally ridiculous that you're so offended at the white shoes being called out. But then, like, by the end of the conversation, her mom basically, like, breaks down and admits, like, to, like, her basest problem with it is that it's like, I'm jealous of your situation, that you and your friends are young and you can do whatever you want, and I'm stuck in this situation where I have to study on top of relying on other people for everything.
She also complains that her and her friends are too attractive, like
she's
too
like,
hot.
You're so you and your young friends are walking around here. You make me hate my hips.
She looks awesome still. It's still hot lips.
No,
like she looks fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah, Sally Kellerman is gorgeous in this movie. So yeah, the fight just continues to flare up, and they're throwing a lot at each other. But it basically ends with her saying, "You make me hate my hips. I hate my hips," and walks out of the room. Like, there's not a clear resolution to that fight. Jeanie goes to find Madge at Jay's screwed up house. She's just sitting on a couch crying, and she's like, "Oh, I thought you were Jay." Like, I was so terrified. It's probably good that she was there when Jay got back, but Jeanie,
because Jay wants to beat her up.
Yeah,
politely,
yeah. But the 2 of them are sitting in this mess and talking about how they're going to try and fix it. And then Jay walks in, and they're telling him that, "Oh, we're going to get full-time jobs, and we're going to pay you back every cent's accounted for. We're gonna fix this whole place right up." And he takes it surprisingly well. He does tell Jeanie to leave immediately.
Yeah, but he also, like, tries to reality check her and be like, "What are you gonna do? Be a waitress? Like, that's gonna take you the rest of your life to pay back all this damage."
She says, "We're all gonna get jobs and we're gonna pay you back." And he's like, "Doing what? Are you gonna be a waitress? That's gonna take you 80 years apiece to fix this place and put it back to how it was." And she's like, "You think we're a bunch of children?" And he's like, "Yes, I do, because you are children."
Yeah,
and it's like,
he's the dude
and I'm also
sleeping
having
with
sex with a child. Like, that's the silent part of that sentence.
That's why I'm having sex with you,
because
you're a child.
Why would I be sleeping with you if I didn't think you were a child?
Oh God.
But then when she turns around, she's like, I'm leaving out the door." And he's like, "What door?" Because apparently the door got, like, ripped off the hinges. And she's like, "This door." And she goes out the sliding glass door, and he's like, "You come back here." She's like, "Why? So you can beat me up?" Like, yes. Please? Please what?
Please come back here so I can beat you up.
Which is, like, clearly he's joking at that point. Like, he's not intending on, like, doing any physical harm to her. And as mad as he is about his house, and he's deservingly upset about it, like, he doesn't lay his hands on her in a physical way. He grabs her shoulders and holds her against the wall for a second to yell at her. Yeah. But he's not, like, smacking her around.
No.
It's within the it's what you would do to a child who ruined your house like this.
Right. Well, and as she like, pouts and, sulks down the driveway, like, she's just reinforcing this childishness. She's the one who is wrong.
Yeah, she's 100% in the wrong. But it's like, if you set this guy up as, like, a guy who's hitting on high school kids already, like, why are you going to draw the line at him, like, slapping her around? Like, it seems like you've already set him up as a jerk. Why are you trying to pretend that he's a nice guy now? Yeah,
I don't know. I think they want him to be the nice guy.
I guess the ending is depending on him being a nice guy. So Jeanie is driving her truck home from this situation when she sees Brad just walking down the street, and she picks him up. And they start driving for a second. She makes fun of how smelly his shoes are. So he just throws them out the window. And resigns himself to riding around in her car all day.
Yeah, it's like a very Easy Rider kind of moment where the dialogue is overlapping with different scenes. Sometimes it's a scene where they're talking, and then it's other scenes where
them just doing random things, driving around some reservoir,
or other scenes where they're talking, but the dialogue is still from the scene before.
Right? Yeah.
It's like a lot of weird cutting. It felt very out of place for the movie.
It's the only time they do like a montage like that.
Yeah. And she's also she's telling the story of like sometime she met some like Native American characters near a farm, or there was like a chicken, and she's talking about pain and death and how she feels pain differently than other people, and it's a really abstract conversation, and I don't think it really lends itself to any of the themes of the story.
Well, yeah, they were like, she was like in a hippie commune, and this guy said that pain is an illusion, so she poured hot tea in his lap,
and she's like, how's that for an illusion? But yeah, so
and he's being put in a mental hospital. That's another thing that's a part of this.
That was basically the result of her dad pulling her into the other room, that she's going to get put in a mental hospital. So when Jeanie and Brad finally find their way back to Jeannie's house at the end of the day, when she walks in, the phone is already ringing, and it's Annie calling, not from the asylum.
Annie, are you okay?
Are you okay, Annie? And Annie's basically broken out of the asylum or left the asylum.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on what kind of an asylum she's put in, if they can hold her at all. But turns out she left, and so she tells Brad, we got to go find her. She's out and she's wasted. And they find her with Duke at some liquor store. And she is intoxicated to the point of discomfort.
Well, she's also on some pills of some sort.
Yeah. She's very like drowsy, and she, as soon as she sees Jeanie, she's like, Jeanie, you got to get me out of here. You got to get me home. And so she basically tries to negotiate with Duke to like let go of Annie. We got to take her home now. It's time to go. And Duke is being very defensive. And Brad steps up here and gets in their face, and he's like, kind of distracts them enough to take a punch so that she can get Annie to the car.
Yeah, they throw him in a garbage can.
Yeah, but then he gets out of the garbage can and like tackles
him into the window.
Like on the skateboard, he crashes into him hard enough to push him through the plate glass front of this store.
In hockey, this would be known as a check.
Right, but because this isn't hockey glass, it's real plate glass like a storefront has. The guy goes right through it and like slices open his neck on this broken glass.
Oh, jeez, I didn't notice the neck part.
Yeah, he's got a big red scar on his neck, and his friends are telling him that he's bleeding a lot. But they chase the car down the street. And Brad is able to get into the pickup truck before they leave. So the three of them drive around a corner and are presumably safe, because the next shot they're walking.
Yeah, I think they're trying to keep Annie awake because I think they're worried if she falls asleep
that she's not going to wake up.
Yeah,
right.
That they're going to be back in that first
she
scene
says,
of the movie.
we're going to walk this off. Like, we're going to walk these pills off.
Right, yeah. But they're presumably they think they're far enough away that they would be safe here. But Annie kind of like lays down, doesn't want to have any of it, and Jeanie just starts screaming in her face like nobody has in her life, and tells her that she's not gonna be here to save her every time, and she needs to straighten herself up, and we're gonna get through this whether you like it or not. But then some cops show up, and Annie's terrified that it's her dad again, so she books it out into the wilderness. And the cops show up and they talk to Jeanie and Brad, and they're just like, oh yeah, no, we're just out here, we'll go home now. And the cops are like, all right, sounds good. And the cops leave, but Brad gets out of the car when Jeanie follows the police out of the neighborhood,
right? So
that they'll think that both of them are in the car still, and Brad can try and find Annie before she hurts herself even worse. He finds Annie, and
Duke tries to run her over.
Yeah, right when he's approaching her, Duke and the boys throw on their lights, and they try to run over Brad in the middle of the street. But he's able to get out of the way. But they chase Annie to the face of like a cliff, basically.
Yeah, she just vanishes.
She just falls off the side of the road, and they're like, "Where'd she go?"
I kept wondering, man, when is she gonna get? It's like the Crispin Glover in.
Oh yeah, when is he gonna lose the arm?
This is where she's gonna get killed in this.
It's like
scene.
His arm is stuck in the elevator door, and he pulls it in at the last second.
It's like a guillotine in slow motion.
Yeah. I can't stop looking. But yeah, I thought that was just her dying when she fell off of the road.
Yeah. I thought they were like going to find her with her head smashed open on a rock.
Yeah.
Because the next time we see her, she's just in a car with some guy.
She's just like already hitched a ride with somebody. But they keep chasing Brad around, but because he's on a skateboard, he's much faster than a car.
Yeah, this is like the inspiration for Back to the Future.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of this felt very Back to the Future-y. Even like the lighting that they chose and everything felt very Back to the Future. But he ends up tricking them into crashing into a truck full of manure.
No. They sideswipe a police car.
They hit a police car, and Brad just leaves, basically. Annie is hitching a ride with some random guy who's complaining that he just got dumped.
Yeah. Because he's too high all the time.
Yeah. He says he's been in his car for 3 days. He's like, I mean, I stopped to eat food, but mostly I'm just driving around. And then he kind of like thinks that there's an opening here, and he tries to hit on Annie, and she's like, oh yeah, no, I'm not into that. And he's like, no. And she's like, no. Yeah, no. Why don't you just let me out? And he's like, all right. And he just lets her out of the car, and she leaves. She gets to a payphone and tries to call Jeannie's house again.
But she's still out looking for her.
But Jeannie's on the side of the road where she lost Annie, so she can't reach her. So she goes to hitch a ride with some strangers. And she ends up getting picked up by this creepy swinger couple. Did you see who the driver was here? The husband of the swinger couple?
Like, I thought I recognized him, but I didn't.
But you do, because he's totally the cop from Don't Answer the Phone.
Is it?
From our previous episode.
Oh, man.
It's the cop that played the, what did you call him from Law & Order?
Oh, the Jerry Orbach character?
He's the Jerry Orbach of the cop duo, the detective duo.
I did. I was like...
Why do I know this guy?
Yeah, I think I was like too confused about this whole situation. Where it's like, this is my wife, Bert.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah. But so the actor's name is Ben Frank, and he was in Don't Answer the Phone and Foxes that both came out on February 29th of 1980. So he had two movies released the same day.
He's a busy man.
Yeah. I wouldn't say busy. I don't think we'll see him again this year. But he had two movies right here. So that's neat. But in addition to being swingers, they are also bad drivers.
Yeah.
And immediately crash into the tail end of a truck. And we cut right to Annie at the hospital, and Annie is not okay.
Yeah.
The doctors have just lost her on the table, and for some reason all the kids are like allowed in the room for this whatever life-saving surgery is happening.
To ID the body.
But you don't let like 19 kids in the room to ID the body. That would be like a parent's job first. But Brad says like, oh, you always piss me off anyway, or something like that, because that's how he's dealing with her being gone. Then we cut to the funeral. No, it's a wedding.
Fake out.
We're at a wedding. Annie is getting married. No, Annie is dead.
Well, when they started playing the wedding,
You're
yeah,
just like, oh, that's awkward. Someone gave you the wrong sheet.
No, it's on the other side.
Play There Goes the Bride. Madge is marrying Jay, the guy that's probably twice her age in this movie. And it's a happy ending.
And everyone's thrilled about it.
Yeah, everyone's so happy, including Madge's parents are just ecstatic.
They finally married that one off. Right?
Yeah, now we got to get this other 14-year-old married.
Now we don't have to pay for all those damages.
Yeah. Someone else can buy her kegs from now on.
It's like a reverse dowry.
Exactly.
Where you don't have to pay for all that stuff.
And then Jeanie and her mom talk about how they're like gonna move or get out of town and get a new place together. But they want to be friends. They want to be nice to each other. Jeanie goes to visit Annie in what looks like Hollywood Forever Cemetery to me. And she sits down next to the grave and says, oh, she's talking to us and telling a story about her and Annie when they were younger, and says, oh, we talked once about, the afterlife and what we wanted for our funerals. And I told her I didn't want to be buried because I didn't want any dirt thrown in my face. But she said she wanted to be buried right under a tree, like a pear tree, so that the roots would grow through her body. And she said that way you could just walk right up to my grave and pluck a pear off the tree and take a bite and say, Annie tastes good this year, or something like that. But that's where we end the film.
She's very presumptuous.
Yes.
What if Annie tasted bad?
Oh my God, these are terrible. This tastes like they're taking their water from a corpse. This is the director Adrian Lyne's first feature. But he would go on to direct Flashdance, Fatal Attraction, Jacob's Ladder, and the Lolita remake with was that Jeremy's Iron?
Yeah, Jeremy's Iron.
Jodie Foster as Jeanie, obviously, from Taxi Driver, Silence of the Lambs, Contact, and Bugsy Malone, as we said before. Cherie Currie as Annie. She was the singer from The Runaways, portrayed by Dakota Fanning in the film about the forming of the Runaways band, with Kristen Stewart as the Joan Jett character. Cherie Currie is also in the Twilight Zone movie in the It's a Good Life, which is the Joe Dante portion.
Mm-hmm.
And her sister Sandra was in Last Married Couple earlier this year. Robert Romanus as Scott was on MacGyver. He was in the Runaways movie also.
Oh.
Just by coincidence. And he was Mike Damone in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And he reprised that role in an episode of Family Guy, playing the same character from Fast Times at Ridgemont High in one of their cutaways.
Nice.
Scott Baio as Brad. Obviously, we said before, he was the titular character, I think, in Bugs Malone. He was also in The Runaways, the TV series, not the band. He was in a great movie called Zapped.
Oh my gosh, we're going to be getting to that soon, right? Or is that before this?
It might be before this.
Oh, Zapped is great.
I love Zapped, though. He's also Chachi and Charles, of Charles in Charge fame. Sally Kellerman, Mary, was Jeannie's mother. She was, as we said before, Hot Lips and MASH. She was Dr. Diane Turner in Back to School. What is it?
Zapped was 1982.
Oh, okay,
it's
so we
still
will
coming.
get to it. Oh,
yes.
Okay, great. That's a great movie. Randy Quaid was Jay. He is in Kingpin, Independence Day. You probably know him from being generally insane on the news lately.
Yeah. But it's important why he was in this film, because Gerald Ayres produced The Last Detail, Jack Nicholson, and Randy Quaid.
Oh, and he was the last detail. He was
Correct.
the titular last detail that they go and find. That's one of his younger roles.
Yeah.
I always think of Paper Moon, too. He was really young in that.
Mm-hmm.
He's like a bootlegger out in the middle of nowhere, and he wrestles people. And he's also
that
obviously...
just seems like his backstory.
Yeah.
Like that just is him.
Yeah. Not Vacation, but Christmas Vacation.
Well, no, he's in the original Vacation.
Right, but I think people remember his character from Christmas Vacation, the Shitter's Full. Yeah. I don't even remember what he did in Vacation. I mean, I know he's in it because he's been in all of them.
Yeah, well, they just stop by his house, and that's where they pick up the old aunt or grandmother, I can't remember.
Yeah. That ends up riding on the outside of the car.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's obviously great in Christmas Vacation. I really like him in Vegas Vacation, too, when he takes into the really shitty casino where they're playing war.
Where can I get some damn bait?
Yeah, the dam. And then we have Lois Smith as Mrs. Axman, Madge's mother, who is obviously Meg in Twister.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, except I obviously remember her from Twister, but the first thing that I go to was that she's Sookie's grandma on True Blood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And she's also Mama Threadgood in Fried Green Tomatoes, which I still haven't seen.
Oh, we have to watch that movie.
And she's Anne in East of Eden. And then we have Scott Garrett, who plays Jason. I have no idea who that is in this movie. But he was in the art department on Tank Girl, Face Off, and Volcano, so I thought it was worth mentioning.
Oh.
Buddy Foster is the boy in the car. I don't know what car, but Buddy Foster, as the name would suggest, is Jodie Foster's brother.
Okay.
Who was originally supposed to be her love interest in the movie. And
what?
They were like, That's a little weird. Let's not do that.
Yeah,
Didn't they do that on Game of Thrones too? Like the Alfie was supposed to be with Lily Allen.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure Lily Allen and her brother were supposed to be the brother and sister from whichever, the Iron Isles or something.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Were we talking about the Greyjoys?
The Greyjoys, yeah.
Theon and his sister.
Theon and his sister were originally going to be played by the same actor that plays Theon and his actual sister.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would have been weird with the groping scene.
Yeah, in the very first scene. That was why she shut it down. And then obviously Laura Dern, who played Debbie, you'll recognize from Jurassic Park. and lots of other things, but just Jurassic Park is all you need.
Yeah,
it's just wonderful.
This
is her first credit.
She's not the daughter of a very famous actor at all, or anything like that.
That is for sure. Bruce Dern.
No, yes, I know Bruce Dern.
Yep.
I'm just waiting to figure out why. Like, does Bruce Dern have any connections to this movie that got his daughter into this movie?
Yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Yeah, Laura Dern, obviously Jurassic Park,
right,
and Star Wars. Vice Admiral Holdo.
Yes, people remember.
Yeah, I was like, wait,
Star
which
Wars?
Star Wars? Oh, that newfangled Star Wars.
Everyone's
one of them
favorite.
Star Wars. But she will return in Jurassic Park 3.
That's true. Well, Jurassic World 3.
Oh, yeah.
Jurassic Park 6.
So she was also in Jurassic Park 3, so I guess.
Was she? Yeah, she was. She was in the third one?
Yeah, she was.
Was she just over the phone?
She was in the beginning scene where they fake you out into thinking that it's her and Grant's kid, but it's not.
But then she was also in the scene where they're drowning.
Yeah, and she's on the phone.
And he's trying to call her.
That's the only other scene.
That's the only other scene. Okay.
She's in, yeah.
Yeah, she should have been in more of it. They could find a way to bring back Ariana Richards and Joseph Mazzello, right?
Well,
because it's got Jeff Goldblum and Sam Neill also, right?
And I don't see why they couldn't.
Just get everybody back.
This exactly.
Bring Attenborough back.
Oh my god! Just go.
Just clone Attenborough.
Go back.
Oh my god! Find a mosquito that bit Richard Attenborough.
Well, that's already weird plot of Jurassic World 2
Yeah,
is the cloning stuff. It's like, what is this movie?
Hello, John.
Hello, John. Hello. Hello, John. From what?
Oh my god.
What?
What if that scene
that's what I'm saying.
in the video...
They might have clones of him. That's what I'm saying. That's how he's the kind of guy that would test this technology on himself.
He's like that's actually real. All those clones up on the fake video.
I hope Richard Attenborough gave them permission to use his likeness in any future sequels once the technology was there to either clone or CG recreate him for the movie. I hope they actually clone Richard Attenborough just to make more Jurassic Park movies. Jess, up or down?
I don't think you have to watch it.
Richard,
I'm gonna give this one an up.
Okay.
I think I like this movie better than you guys did. There are definitely some odd parts. Like I felt like the whole Jodie Foster Scott Baio day out was pointless.
Yeah.
But I was really intrigued and I was really invested in what was going on. And there's some good performance. Obviously, Jodie Foster always gives a good performance.
Yeah,
even
no,
at this age,
I have no problem with the performances at all.
When she's yelling at her mom, it's just like, man, this is intense. So I give it an up.
And I definitely feel like Lois Smith steals her whole scene.
Oh, she's terrific.
Yeah. But I
Margot Martindale was the only other person who could play that role
that's
so perfectly.
That's true. Margot Martindale would be great. She'd be the right age at that point too. But yeah, I would say that the performances are great and the casting was really well done. But for me, there's not much to the story other than a very straightforward cautionary tale of the troubled kid that comes from a troubled home, goes through a lot of drugs and stuff and dies and teaches everybody else a lesson, which has happened so many times before.
I'm totally with you on that. But you know me, I am not a slice of life movie person at all. I definitely need more story, a full arc to happen here. And
but having a competent cast carries the script a long way.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it ranks low for me, but I would say that this isn't something that I would say is a must-see situation. Letterboxd rank. Where does this go for you guys?
So I have it above Hero at Large, but I think I'm putting it below The Last Married Couple in America.
What about you?
I have it pretty, as you can imagine, I have it up higher. I actually have it above American Gigolo, but below Saturn 3.
Okay. That's fair. I have it just below Last Married Couple and above Midnight Madness, which is a wide gap between those two movies, I would say. But this falls into it, so that's where I'm putting it. Yeah, but I think that's about it for this one. If you guys have any thoughts you'd like to share, we are Vintage Video Pod on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Or as we've said many times, you can find each of our full movie rankings for the year. We can also be found at vintagevideopodcast.com. Please consider rating us on iTunes to help people find the show. And if you take the time to leave us a review, we will thank you personally in an upcoming episode. If you're feeling especially generous, you can also support the show through patreon.com/vintagevideopodcast. Thank you for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time when we will be discussing the 9th configuration, which IMDb describes as a former Marine arrives at a mental asylum housed in a remote castle to run it. There, he attempts to rehabilitate the patients by letting them act out their craziest fantasies and desires.
I am already excited.
How could that go wrong?